Hi, boys and girls. Hi. Ready? 3, 2, you know what to do. 1, 0. Eyes and smiles and frozen. Students, nice job, boys and girls. All right, so last week, we talked about Eric Carle, the author, the illustrator, the artist, the one who wrote the book, The Very Hungry Caterpillar. And your Eric Carle inspired artwork last week was amazing. Those of you at home who showed me your artwork, I just loved it. It was awesome. I can't wait to see what you do with our next artist. So I'm going to share my screen, and here we go. Today's artist is Wassily Kandinsky. And if you do a Google search on him and you watch some videos about Wassily Kandinsky, you'll notice his name being pronounced differently. Some pronounce it Wassily, some pronounce it Wassily, some Wassily, and some Wassily. I'm going to pronounce his first name Wassily. So today's artist is Wassily Kandinsky, and he was most known for his abstract art. Some call him the first artist to ever create this style of artwork. So I know you're probably thinking Pablo Picasso, he created abstract art. He is very well known for abstract art, but believe it or not, Picasso came after Kandinsky. So if it wasn't for Kandinsky, there'd be no Picasso and abstract art. So do you know what abstract art is? Well, if you don't, you'll find out in this presentation on today's artist, Wassily Kandinsky. He was born in Moscow, Russia in 1866. That's more than 150 years ago. So no, he's not still alive today. He died in 1944 while living in France. So while growing up in Russia, he loved to take music and art lessons, but he didn't become a professional artist until later in life when he was in his early 30s. So before that, before becoming a professional artist, he went to college to become a lawyer. He practiced law there in Russia, and he taught law as a professor in a local college at night. It was a good job, and he was a hard worker. But it wasn't long before he decided that's not what he wanted to do. So he gave it all up, gave up his job as a lawyer and a college professor, and he went off to perfect his art talents. So he left Russia and moved to Germany to study art. At the time, most of the new up-and-coming artists were painting in a new style. This style experimented with colors and strayed away from the very realistic looking or lifelike scenes and portraits. Now that the camera had been developed, ultra lifelike art really was losing its place in the new art culture. So painters began practicing a new technique that made their paintings look maybe less lifelike or realistic on purpose, but began a whole new art movement called Impressionism. Impressionism. So Impressionist artists didn't intend for their paintings to look as realistic as a photograph, but instead used short or stabbing brush strokes with very expressive colors and subtle or muted details to create their artwork. This painting on the screen right now was one of Wassily Kandinsky's earlier paintings, done in this style of Impressionism. Can you tell the difference between Impressionism and realism? So Kandinsky took it even a step further when painting in the style of Impressionism by using colors that were really far from realistic, but somehow worked so well together to show the viewer the true energy of a scene, maybe even better than he could have done using lifelike colors. So already taking Impressionism further than any other artist at the time, Kandinsky stretched his style of art even further, until now he has created a whole new, completely new style of art, no longer Impressionism. Now look on the screen, you see this style right here? This is called abstract art. Instead of drawing scenes and landscapes and people in them, he started painting interesting and seemingly random lines and shapes and often bizarre designs that even made little sense to some of the more traditional minded art enthusiasts. But they were intriguing and beautiful nonetheless. This new style of art he was creating is called abstract art. So take a look at this example of his artwork. Can you see the difference between abstract art and realistic art or impressionist art, impressionism? You can see that they're very different. So even though Kandinsky's take on Impressionism had a much brighter and bold color scheme to it, they weren't quite true to reality. And that was what was so cool about his Impressionism art. But you can see how he transformed from that to his new style using those bright, bold colors, but not at all realistic looking, and just using shapes and lines and different colors and bizarre designs to make his art. You can see that this was really a huge leaping change, switching over from Impressionism to abstract art. Kandinsky loved his bright colors and shapes, especially, as you can see in these two paintings right here, especially circles, triangles, squares, and straight lines and straight intersecting lines. You can see those all throughout those paintings. So this is interesting, he wasn't just an artist who invented a new style of art called abstract art. That's pretty cool in itself. But he was also a professional musician, and he composed his own music, and it was very good also. He played the piano and the cello just as well as some of the greatest musicians of his time. He had a real good connection between music and painting. When he played music, he thought of colors and sometimes even listened to music with his eyes closed to let his paintbrush move on the canvas with the music. Kandinsky had a famous quote. He once said, "All art begins with a dot." Somehow these words make me believe that I can draw anything. How about you? So, an artist as talented as Wassily Kandinsky, who expanded the boundaries of Impressionism, who fathered the new style of an artistic movement called abstract art, you'd think that he would be loved and admired and adored and revered by everyone in his day, right? Strangely, no, that was not the case. He and his artwork were not appreciated or even recognized as being great by most of the people of his day, and even by those in his own home country of Russia. Oh, this horrible ruler, you may have heard of him, German ruler and person of the time, Adolf Hitler, even had many of his paintings destroyed, and Hitler forbid him to paint anymore and even tried to arrest him for painting. Hitler was full of judgment about many things and many people. But as it relates to art and the art world, he had judgments there as well. He tried to cleanse the world of non-realistic looking art because he didn't like it. This was an uneasy time for artists who painted in styles like abstract art or Impressionism. Many of those artists fled to Paris, France, where they still had to hide from Hitler's German Nazi army, who would find them and steal and burn and destroy their paintings and just ruin precious and priceless art from greats like Kandinsky and George Seurat and Vincent van Gogh even. What a shame. So Kandinsky lived much of his life in France and also traveled all around Europe studying and practicing his art. Here's something interesting about him. He was said to have been an incredibly well-dressed man, often wearing a suit. Even while painting, he would paint in a suit, sometimes a white suit. So not just that, he was also incredibly organized. His art studio was said to look like a scientist's laboratory or a surgeon's operating room. That's how neat and organized he was. Just look at this picture. Those are his bottles of paint so neatly organized on his shelf. Here are some pictures of him wearing his suit that I told you about as he's painting. Kandinsky formed a group of forward-thinking artists who thought like him and enjoyed stretching the boundaries of artistic styles and even creating new ones, just like he did with his abstract art. And he called this group the Blue Rider Group. Kandinsky actually had a very rare disorder called synesthesia. Synesthesia. This disorder caused him to see colors when he had emotions. It also caused him to see colors when he heard music or smelled something tasty like pizza. Can you imagine that? His senses were so joined that he even would hear sounds when he smelled certain things like perfumes or flowers. It's been claimed, that sounds weird to you, I'm sure. It has been claimed that some artists, like the musician Stevie Wonder, have you heard of Stevie Wonder? Has the same disorder, and it helps them to feel the music that they create on a level that we don't understand. What was that? Cha-ching! Kandinsky's style of abstract art really took off, and it began an entire movement and inspired a whole wave of new abstract artists like Pablo Picasso, and is so well known today that likely everyone you talk to will know what abstract art is and looks like. A painting today created by Wassily Kandinsky would sell for anywhere between $20 and $40 million. I bet you'd like to have one of his paintings. Let's take a closer look now at some of his most well-known pieces of artwork, those in the style of abstract art. Here are two paintings. Do you see the shapes, intersecting lines, the circles? More shapes, lots of colors. Very abstract. Some of his lines and shapes almost look like faces in his picture on my right. Do you think he meant to do this? You see? Could be an eye, nose, maybe this is a face. Okay, these pictures may not be abstract art necessarily. These pictures probably fit closer into the Impressionist period or post-Impressionist style, but I wanted you to see how he used colors in an unrealistic and fantastic way to almost make you forget that you're looking at a landscape scene and only focus on his color combinations. Pretty cool and beautiful. This is maybe Wassily Kandinsky's most famous and well-known piece of artwork. He calls it Concentric Circles Inside Squares. So the word concentric, I'm sure you haven't heard of that word before. The word concentric in this situation, concentric circles, simply implies circle, inside of a circle, inside of a circle, inside of a circle, inside of a circle. Look at his bright, bold colors. Do you see any patterns? Can you tell if he has used cool, warm, or neutral colors? Remember, reds and oranges and yellows are warm colors. Blues, greens, and purples are cool colors. Black, browns, and whites are neutral colors. All right, boys and girls, now it's time for you to create your own version of Kandinsky's concentric circles. But instead of making 12 concentric circles inside of 12 squares on a piece of paper, we're going to make something a little different. We're going to make those concentric circles as leaves on a tree, like this. Look how beautiful this looks. And I know yours is going to come out looking just as fantastic, just as beautiful, if not even more or way more beautiful than this. Can't wait to see it. You can do it. So here's how you do this. First, think about what colors you might want to use. Maybe you want a pattern. Next, with a crayon, make a small closed dot, maybe between the size of a pea and a dime. Then make a ring of color around that dot. and then another ring around that, and then another ring around that, and then another around that. Make lots of concentric circles like this of different sizes and different sizes all over your paper until your entire paper is full. Then on a new sheet of paper, draw a tree like this. You can draw your tree just like this one or however you'd like. Maybe you want to make it an oak tree or a maple tree or a Christmas tree or a palm tree, any type of tree you want. Then color your tree, your ground, your background. Don't put any leaves on it yet though. All right, next, cut out and glue down your concentric circles from the other paper and glue them onto this paper, onto your tree, just like they were leaves. And that's it, guys. That's all there is to it, to creating your own Wassily Kandinsky inspired concentric circle tree. I know you'll do a fantastic job, and remember, you can do it. They'll look just like this. All right, boys and girls. I can't wait to see your artwork. You're going to do a great job. And remember, this was Wassily Kandinsky, who you just learned about in abstract art. All right, boys and girls. Bye. Good luck. Good luck with your art. Bye.